Hello, everybody. Here we are at the Powerhouse Smart Luxury Conference. Finally, this is the first day, and we had a fabulous opening segment. And then Lenore Weiss, she's incredible. And now I am so excited to introduce you to our first virtual hard hat tour as a part of this conference. Just so you know, Powerhouse Smart does hard hat tours every month of the year. And they're incredibly educational, but the whole concept is we want the architect builder team and their collaborators, we want to elevate them as leaders in the industry because they are, and we want them to, and they're so kind, as is this team, share their time with us and this project with us. We want them to also introduce themselves and we want to learn who they are because they may be the people you reach out to next for your next collaboration. Once again, Powerhouse Smart is all about building up our network and raising the bar for everyone. And this project is on the West Coast in Laguna Beach. Absolutely so awesome. And Anders Lasater is our architect leader, and he is going to introduce himself, and then let his collaborators introduce themselves. He's going to share the scope of the project, lessons learned, teach us about new technologies. It's going to be incredible. So without further ado, Anders, please take it away.
I'll do that. Thank you, Wendy. I really appreciate that kind introduction. And it's a real honor to be here on the first day of this terrific conference and to share this project with everybody. My name is Anders Lasater. I'm an architect in Laguna Beach with Anders Lasater Architects, my own firm. And we practice primarily custom residential projects here along the coast. And the project I'm going to share with you today is a real special duplex home in North Laguna that was the first project in Southern California to use the innovative bone structure prefabricated structural system. And that made it a real interesting process for us to design with and for the builder to deliver and for the city to learn about new technologies. So we're really excited to share it with everybody. I'm joined today by Jorge Gonzalez from Bone and Joe Kramer, our general contractor for the project. Gentlemen, why don't you introduce yourself? Joe, you want to start?
Sure. Thanks for that introduction, Wendy and Anders. Glad to be here. My name is Joe Kramer. My company is J. Kramer Corp. I'm a local builder here in Laguna Beach, and I'm the general contractor for this fantastic project. We finished about 5 months ago, and it was a collaboration not only with Anders and Jorge and Bone Structure, but also with the owners as well. And it turned out fantastic. It's one of the best projects ever been involved with, if not the best. And I'm really happy to share it with you guys.
Jorge, what about you?
Yeah, Jorge Gonzalez here, and very excited to be here. I'm VP of Operations for Bone Structure in the US, and based out of San Francisco, so a little bit farther north than Anders and Joe. And I was actually involved in this project from the get-go as well. And it's the first project that we have ever done in Southern California. So is one of the special projects that we have delivered for sure.
Awesome. I love the fact that it looks like there's real people in that picture, Anders.
Yeah, I think that one of the things we always have to keep in mind, and that's in the forefront of my thinking whenever we're designing a home, is that we're designing a home for people to live in it. It's, should be a beautiful object when it's done. But if we start with that, instead of starting with the notion of how do I create a place where people can live and live their best life and have the things that support what they're trying to do, then we'll fall short. So we like to make sure that we photograph our homes with people in them because that keeps that idea front and center. These are homes for people, and we need to think about how we can make good spaces that support the kind of lifestyle they want to lead, which is a nice way to segue into the story of this project. Tim and Ileana, who you see in the photo there, were a couple who had lived part-time in Laguna Beach, had moved out of Laguna and bought a home in a neighboring community, and had always wanted to come back to Laguna. They found this particular property, which had been a dilapidated semi-commercial structure with a couple of apartments above it. They found this property in North Laguna and purchased it with the hopes of maybe remodeling it and turning it into a place where they could live and still rent out the commercial unit. It turned out that the city was not really inclined to let them do that, but rather if they wanted to improve the property, it would mean tearing down the existing structure because of existing non-conforming conditions and doing something new, which in turn gave them a really incredible opportunity. And that was to embrace some new technologies for building that would then give them the kind of home that they wanted to spend the next 30 years of their life in. So they reached out to me and they asked, you know, Anders, we love what you do, but could we involve more technology? What could we do that's different with how buildings are going together? What could we do that would be a meaningful green way, a sustainable way to create this building that's going to stand here for another 30 or 40 years? And I said, well, let's look at prefabrication. There may be some opportunities there. And we looked at modular construction. We looked at prefab factory built. We looked at panelized systems. But the one that rose to the top out of all of those was the system we employed with this project, the company that Jorge runs, called Bone Structure. And what Bone does is it's a series of prefabricated erector set that go together to create the structural skeleton of a house like the one you see here. So I'm going to take you through this project and explain to you how we worked together to make this all come into reality. And it wasn't without challenges. You can be absolutely sure of that. But I think the theme for this conversation today is really success through collaboration and through combined skills. We all have a certain set of knowledge, and we were all able to deploy them with equal respect to everyone else on this project. And that's what I think gave it the ability to elevate into now an award-winning project. This was selected as People's Choice Award for the American Institute of Architects Orange County chapter just this past September. So we were really excited to see other people responding to this and feeling energized about it. But let me tell you a little bit about the property Tim and Ileana had purchased. In the diagram on your lower left screen, you can see our site in the center there. And it's straddled between North Coast Highway on the upper side, which is a busy highway passing through town, and Cliff Drive, which is a little slower paced street on the lower side. And right below Cliff Drive is the Pacific Ocean. So they have a beautiful connection to the Pacific horizon beyond as they look there down towards the coastline. So we immediately knew this was a special property, special for a couple of reasons. Number one, it has a highway on one side that we probably want to edit out of our vision, maybe even edit out of our ears. And then it has an ocean and a beautiful view on the other side that we wanted to take most advantage of. Something we also needed to be aware of is that it has a number of existing houses and structures around it. And in the city of Laguna Beach, we have to be very careful that we don't propose something that blocks views. So we needed to be mindful of how we could design a structure that would be responsive to the site, but not block views. And what we came up with, as indicated in these diagrams at the top of the page, was a notion of wrapping these two units, these two duplex units, around a central courtyard and contouring that shape to fit the angular nature of the property, and then cutting away from that shape spaces for outdoor activities, decks, things that where you can have breakout space. And what we ultimately arrived at was the form that the building took. Now, the form the building took needed something to hold it up, and the Bone Structure system, as I mentioned, was the one prefabricated system that rose to the top and seemed to meet all of our demands. With Bone Structure, you have a series of prefabricated roof beams, floor beams, and wall columns and braced frames. I think, Jorge, you could speak to those braced frames and how rigidly those things work for earthquake and lateral resistance a little later. But all of these pieces come out as a set of parts, as you can see on this image to the right. We've got a collection of parts that arrive in multiple containers to the job site. There is an instruction manual about how these pieces go together to become the building we've designed. And literally, they are screwed together with a screw gun using 1/4-inch hex head screws, and a team of specialized steel erectors come out. They put all the pieces together on top of a great foundation that Joe, you poured for us, a very exact foundation because we had to make sure the columns were in just the right spot. But we end up with this beautiful skeleton structure that you see in this upper photograph here. It's really quite lovely. And then on top of the skeleton, a panelized system of insulated structural panels go inside, and then to the outside, a spray foam insulation is applied, all of which then builds up a very thermally effective envelope that protects the house against temperature swings, and also does great performance for structural. Jorge, maybe now would be a good time for you to talk about your lateral brace frame system and how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess what is unique about it and slightly different is we're using a concentrically braced frame system. It's a tension-based system where all the lateral loads, and we're in California, so seismic loads and lateral loads are a big deal. They're going to be concentrated in those X braces, and then those X braces are going to be hidden within the wall. And then you have much more flexibility to have more glazing and turn all the other walls into potentially windows if you wanted to. It's part of a North American code for cold form steel, so pretty standard in that sense.
What was interesting about it, though, is that to go back to my earlier comment, the city of Laguna Beach had never seen anything like this. So
Yeah.
when we submitted these plans to the city, they kind of just scratched their head and said, okay, I don't understand any of this. You guys have to really prove it to us. And they made us jump through some hoops that we wouldn't have otherwise normally done had this been more conventional stick framing. But in the end, the building official, the head of the building department, asked me to give him and some students that he teaches building construction to a tour of this particular property while it was under construction. He loved this system so much and was so fascinated and impressed with what we were doing. He ultimately had me and his students with Joe giving a hard hat tour of the property, learning how it was going together. So what was really fun to see was that they did embrace the structural system once they learned about it.
Yeah.
And after you've built this skeletal system, then the great thing about the bone structure is that it allows for you to skin the building in pretty much any material that you'd want. And so our palette included some smooth troweled stucco in 2 different colors, some horizontal wood siding for parts of the upper portions of the building. And that gives you the ability to really customize and turn what looks like a steel skeletal system into anything you'd like. In fact, while this particular building has flat roofs because of our view preservation and wanting to make sure we stayed under our height limits, there's no reason why you couldn't have designed bone structure with a sloping roof or any combination of flat and sloping roof. The system is really very flexible, and it would have allowed us to explore a variety of different particular roof forms. In fact, we had at one point a sloping roof, but we learned very quickly we were definitely blocking some views. So we had to lower that and make that conform, which is a pretty typical thing here in Laguna Beach. So one of the ideas that I talked about earlier that I think in this particular project is very successful was the notion of this central courtyard around which both of the units seem to orbit. And you can see an image of that courtyard here on the right. What it does is it brings in light to the center of the building in a really terrific way, so that all of the beautiful light that comes in from this side facing the ocean is counterbalanced by the light coming in from the courtyard and the light coming in from the skylights, so that anywhere you are in that space, you've just got a light-filled and abundance of spatial experience. Now in this image, I thought this was really telling because it's like an X-ray. Now we're starting to see what's really going on inside the floor plan. Every one of these grid lines is intersecting at a bone column. So you can see that there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of organization, and there's a lot of preparation that has to go into deploying this, which is, to speak to you, Joe, I think one of the greatest assets that you brought. I was thoroughly impressed with your ability to manage the project. Did you find that that was something that was easy?
I wouldn't say easy. We had a lot of different subs who understood the complexity of it. They were also on board to do a beautiful job. And it's the only job I took at this during this time. I didn't take any other jobs because of its importance. And I just wanted to turn out the best possible project that I could. So in cooperating with bone structure and the deliveries, you know, we assembled it floor by floor and it went pretty well. We just sort of steered around the constraints of the deliveries and our skinny streets, but overall everybody understood what we were working
Yeah,
on.
I think that That's an important point, what you bring up with regard to the delivery of the product, because in essence, Bone delivers an entire building packaged in freight, shipping containers, right, Joe?
Giant
so now,
trucks. Yeah,
giant
we were
trucks show
fortunate.
up, and you've suddenly now got to offload all of this product and assemble it in a way that your workers can get to it, but that you're not blocking the work area where you're trying to build a building. Logistically, it was very challenging, wouldn't you say?
Yes, we were fortunate enough at least to have Cliff Drive and Coast Highway. But like you said, we would unload the stuff and try to get it out of the way. Sometimes we would unload and assemble with the crane there just to have those things in place and out of the way and ready for the next shipment. So we were fortunate to have two streets, I will say that.
Yeah, that's true.
And Joe, I have just one thing. When I had heard about this before, and we had a discussion before today, you had mentioned that when you first heard Anders presented this project to you, and you didn't have any hesitancy at all to use bone structure. Tell us why.
I had known about it a little before this, and when he mentioned it to me that that's the system they wanted to use, I said yes instantly. Because it is a viable alternative to 2x4 construction, and they address so many different things that we deal with, especially thermal efficiency. The building, I remember walking in there at 7 in the morning and being 49 degrees outside, and inside it was very pleasant. And
Wow.
They've addressed a lot of things that we deal with in construction. It's a forever building. It's super straight. Nothing's going to rot. And they're able to address a lot of structural things that in typical construction is just dealt with massive I-beams and sometimes overly heavy things that, maybe there's a second way to look at that. And I think they've done that.
Well, it's absolutely stunning. So, Anders, one of the things that you had said earlier was that, using this system was going to also be a time savings. I know that you just talked about how you had to kind of logistically work on the delivery of the material. So did you actually save time, Joe, or how did that all work with the schedule?
We did. My projects are scheduled pretty heavily each day. But we ended up saving a fair amount of time. The whole thing was completed in like 15 months.
Okay.
So
wow.
That's unusual for a house of this size under these conditions in this location for Laguna Beach. I think 18 to 24 months is typically what we see for construction in this area because of the constraints and dealing with the municipality and neighbors, et cetera. For reference, Joe, I've mentioned this to you before. I had another house, a conventionally framed house, start the very same week that you started this project. You finished this in July of last year, and they're still not done with the other house. And it's basically the same size home. So we're running into some challenges there. I can't guarantee that if you use bone structure, you're going to shave, 6 months off of every construction project. But what it does do is that it puts a burden on us in the early stages, right? Jorge, you and I and your bone team and my team here, we really had to work very diligently to make sure we had everything figured out, because once they press print, so to speak, and their factory starts ejecting out these pre-made components, you really need to have it right. So we took some time in the beginning of the project, but that equaled a lot of savings in the construction time later, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I would say truly integrated design is only going to happen when you're having everyone around the table from the get-go. And that's what happened here. We built this project, Anders, virtually before we build it for real, right? To every single nut and screw. So by the time you get to construction, all the problems are already figured out because we built the project virtually before. Joe and his team, and those are builders that we love to work with, because the moment he jumped on board for the project, he started studying the plans, the 3D models, the shop drawings, the fabrication models, and he was all over them from day one. So that's it. That's the biggest lesson learned here for us. Our successful projects are the ones where there's a real buying from all the stakeholders, including the clients, which in this case from day one were bone structure fans. And that's when truly integrated design happens, and that's how you solve complex problems, which is what we're trying to do here. This is a really, really complex project, and that's the only way to tackle it.
Well, bravo to you all. I heard consistently sustainability. I heard collaboration. I heard respect. I mean, these are all things that the three of you, exude. And of course, I know you had mentioned Modea as well, Rosie, who was not able to be with us today. So that's exactly what we try to talk about when we're, trying to educate even the younger upcoming leaders in design and construction, is working as a team, and the benefits are so incredible. And not only that, the client is the one who totally walks away just so thrilled with the experience. Is that them there, Anders?
Yeah, that's them there. And I think that's a good segue into a discussion about these particular clients. I can honestly say I don't think this project would have been as successful had they not given us a level of trust and enough room, so to speak, enough latitude, right, guys, to be able to deliver this thing. I mean, they really trusted that we knew what we were doing and that we were going to pull through for them. And there's a constant level of second guessing and, trying to outsmart their professionals, but rather they really relied on us to do for them what we were good at doing. And in doing that, they gave us the energy to propel this forward when there were very much times during the process that we were frustrated. We were running into problems. Jorge and I, and Jorge's team and my team, we were exchanging 3D computer models in Revit, which is the software we use to build this thing. And we'd get their model back and there'd be a part that's just not coming together. And then we'd send them what we wanted and they would have a problem on their end. And now we're fighting against one another and just constantly trying to figure it out. But with the notion in our head that we were doing it for Tim and Ileana, and they were so grateful as clients for what we did for them, that doing that hard work and going the extra mile really felt effortless. And to this day, Ileana makes the most amazing rice pudding, and every time I see her, if I stop by the house or if she comes by the office, she's always bringing me rice pudding or rum. She loves rum. And so she's always bringing me rum and rice pudding. I put on definitely a couple of pounds because of this project, but really grateful clients for allowing us to do what we did. That is to say, I'm grateful we had those clients for allowing us to do what we did, because I don't think that we would have been able to do it had they not put that trust in us. Don't you think, guys?
Couldn't have asked for better clients, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if there is, I was just going to say, if there is another lesson there, and if there are any potential clients listening, oftentimes it's making sure that you do trust in your professionals to deliver the project for you. That means, of course, finding the right professional to begin with, and then entrusting them to be able to deliver for you what it is that you've asked them to do. I can give you my own account of something similar. We recently hired a video production company to help us with some promotional videos. And instantly I went from being the guy in charge to now being that client, being the person who had to trust that these guys knew what they were doing. And it's a challenging position to be in for sure. But when you do trust, like these guys did for us, they surprised us with something really terrific. Like I feel we surprised Tim and Ileana with something really terrific. So that level of trust and respect has echoed through the project from the very beginning.
Well, that is absolutely sensational. And congratulations to you for winning the award, the People's Choice Award. I always, the most important award is the People's Choice Award.
It's nice to know people like it. That to me is the most important thing. Do people like it? Because we design these things for people. And if people like it, that means we're doing the right thing.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you're going to get lots of other future business as people get to experience this project from the owners and now from this project tour. So this has been a fabulous 20 minutes. I know the audience would love to ask you questions. I don't know if we have time for Q&A, but I want you all to know that Anders and Jorge and Joe are all available as far as reaching out to them for future projects and collaboration. They're all available through the conference website. And I just am so grateful that you three gentlemen and professionals took time out of your incredibly busy days to share this with us. And one of the other lessons that you said, Anders, which I have to applaud you, is the Laguna Beach permit process. We all know, we all have our idiosyncrasies in different towns. And I know this must have been a challenge, especially the neighbors must have been very involved. So kudos to you guys. This is absolutely stunning. I love everything you do, Anders. And
You're sweet.
I just have to applaud you and thank you again.
Thanks,
Well, it was
Wendy.
our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Wendy.
you.